Hi everybody, welcome to Manifold Land. This is the third of the Manifold tutorial videos, and we're going to pick up exactly where we left off in tutorial number 2, where we were looking at a maze in Venice. In this video we're going to learn how to export data, how to load up a PostgreSQL database, how to create a layout, and how to print a map. We have two maps open in the project, map 2, which we're looking at here, and map 1. Notice we can switch between the two open windows by clicking on their tabs. We can undock a window by shift-clicking the window, and we can undock it or dock it again, also using the right-click to dock. So let's close this window here because we're going to be working with this map, and we can turn layers in the map on and off. You can see the map has a bunch of layer tabs down here at the bottom. We can also use the layers pane to turn layers off and on, and that's often more convenient when we're working with very many layers. And what we're going to do is we're going to delete some of the layers here that we no longer need. For example, the Venice ground surface layer. I can right-click on that and off-screen choose Delete from Map. And I'd also like to delete this Venice 1 meter layer, which is coming in from a different project that we linked into our project here. And I can delete that, remove that from the map by right-clicking there and choosing the context menu, or by control-clicking it here and choosing the delete. That doesn't actually delete the layer from the project, it just deletes it from using the map. And this is the set of layers that we're going to work with. I'm going to add one more layer here. I'm going to, back in the project pane, which we of course we can shift click the tab to dock and undock, and undock that off screen. So we can shift click that to dock and undock, and we can move our layer tabs around to whatever pane arrangement we want. And let's get the Google Maps satellite layer, and we're going to drag and drop that into play here. And so that way we'll have the Google Maps satellite imagery to a layer to use as a reference point for adding points. We're going to add some points to the Wiki Landmarks layer, and let's see, I'm going to double click the Bing Street Maps layer to turn that off, and let's turn off the OSM Structures layer as well, and let's turn off the OSM Canals layer so we can work with the Wiki Landmarks layers and use the Google Street Maps layer as a point of reference. With the focus on the Wiki Landmarks layer, I'm going to choose Create Point, and I'm going to right click and drag into this region here, because what's most important to know about Venice? Well, top of the list, of course, is to know a good pizza joint. So we're going to zoom right into this piazza here, the Campo San Polo, which is near the Rialto Bridge. It's a little bit off the beaten track, but it's a wonderful, wonderful place. And right here is one of the best pizza places in Venice. It's called the Birreria La Corte, which is Italian for the brewery, the court. And I have to apologize for my Italian. It's not as good as my French or German or other languages, but hey, you got to work with what you have. So by clicking here with the cursor in Create Point mode, I can create a point. So let's create the point right there. That's where the pizza joint is. And you can see it opens up. The point is added in a provisional little blue dot. And we can add contents here to the name and comments and other fields. So to add the name, what I'll do is I will copy. Off screen I have a web page open that has a listing of restaurants in Venice with descriptions. I'm going to copy from that page, and then here I'll paste Birreria La Corte so I don't have to type it out. And again, off page, what I will do, I will copy a bunch of text from the description of it, and just copied that. Right click and choose copy on the website off screen, and then right here I'll choose right click into the comments field and choose paste. And to fill that out, since I enter some multi-line text, what I'll do is I'll double-click onto the comments field, and let's say I'll edit it. You'll find a menu. Okay, we don't need that, which was part of a picture that I picked, which I copied. The restaurant, which also has beer and tap and piazza seating available. Features spacious air-conditioned rooms, striking terrace on the San Polo on the. Let's change this into English. Campo San Polo, and an exclusive, intimate, and private court, inner court. I don't like to use ampersands in text. There, and private inner courtyard. Good. Click OK, and now to actually add the point, I'll click Add Record, and you can see the point turns on using exactly the same formatting that the other points used. And a label also turns on because labels automatically take, in this labels layer, automatically take their text content from the name field. And since we added a name field to this point, I can alt-click it to show you what we did. The labels actually is taking its text automatically from that. Okay, well, let's move on a bit, and let's see what we can what we can choose to add next. I know. What's next up on our list? Well, it's maybe not as important as a good pizza place, but it sure helps to have a good train station. And here's one of the best train stations on earth. It's literally one of my favorite train stations in Venice. I've been there a lot, and it's just a really nice place. So again, with the focus on the Wiki Landmarks layer, let's click Create Point, and I'll create the point right here. And for the name, let's use Train Station. And let's double click directly. Let's right click and choose Edit in the Comments field to directly enter that stuff in the edit box. And we can resize this edit box if we like. So let's just leave it about that. And let's say, what should we write? Wonderful train station. Visit Venice by train, not by car, since you'll be leaving your car in the parking lot anyway. Okay, that's good enough. We don't have to write a whole text thing. We're just after all just doing a demonstration here. And that's true, since Venice is and all the Venice is a pedestrian zone, you will be leaving your car in the parking lot. So come by train, and you can get train connections to Florence and all sorts of other cool Italian cities right at this train station. Click Add Record, and there too the train station dot appears with the train station label, which is taken from the name field that we created. So okay, let's zoom out a bit to all the wiki landmarks. I'll control click that to zoom to fit, and we can see that we added two more landmarks here. We added the brewery of the court, Birraria della Corte. That's what that means. It's the court brewery, and the wonderful pizza joint. And we added the train station here. Let's shift back to the project pane, and we'll learn how to export various layers. What we'll do is we'll export the OSM structures layer. So I'll turn that on so you can see what we're about to export. To export that layer, we right-click on OSM structures, the drawing in the project pane, and we choose export. And let's start by choosing files as type from all the different options we have. GPackage, click export, and that will export that layer, that vector layer, to a GPackage file. If we bring a Windows File Explorer into view, we can see that it created an OSM structures GPackage file that's not quite about 2.8 megabytes in size. Let's export OSM structures to a shapefile. Right-click on it and choose Export, and this time we'll choose SHP format. And shapefiles are kind of boring, but hey, everybody uses anyway. And let's call these my shape OSM structures. Click Export, and Manifold will export that vector layer into a shapefile. Manifold automatically creates the full ensemble of shapefiles that are involved in a so-called shapefile, which is, as you probably know, is not just the SHP. It's also, for example, the DBF, where the database, the attribute data is stored in a DBase2 format, the PRJ for projection information. This map meta file here is a Manifold innovation. That's something that Manifold does. It doesn't mess up use of all the rest of the shapefile, but you only need to use it. You only need it if you want to work with Manifold. And what that does is kind of a belt and suspenders approach. It's a safety measure that just in case you've used a projection that maybe PRJ doesn't quite understand or other shapefiles won't understand, it's in there in the map meta file format. So when you open this shapefile again with any Manifold product, it will automatically read that map meta file to get coordinate system information with full and total Manifold precision, and not the sloppy way that shapefiles do it. So let's continue onwards. Let's learn how to export the entire map. And to export the entire map, we choose Edit, File, Export, and that'll give us a set of options, file formats that can handle the multi-layered structure of the entire map. And what we're going to do is we're going to export to GDB. But before we do that, I'm going to alt-click this Wiki Landmarks layer that and the point that I created here for the Birraria della Corte. And here I'm going to right-click on the comments and choose Edit, because I want to export to GDB, but GDB is a brain-dead format, and it can't handle a whole lot of text in some of the attributes. So I'm going to delete some of the text that I entered to make sure that the attribute is not too long, doesn't have too much text for it. So there, I've done that. Click Update Record. Okay, we're in good shape. So with the focus on the map window, now I can choose File, Export, and I will choose instead of GPackage or one of the modern any other modern, I will choose GDB. So we're going to export this to Esri file geodatabase format, Venice map. Click Export, and it'll think for a bit. Manifold is actually launching Esri's own API. This is actually Esri code which is doing the export. It's not Manifold code which is doing that, which is a good thing, because if you know what file geodatabase is, and you can see it created a folder structure here, a folder called venice-map.gdb. If we drill into that folder, we can see this is full of all these zillions of files which file geodatabase uses, which is a spectacularly Rube Goldberg format. And if you want to see what it created, what we can do is we can launch another Manifold instance, which I'll do on off screen, and I'll bring that into view. And let's drag and drop the GDB, and we'll import that into the file. So great, it's that quick. And in this other Manifold session here, let's take a look at what the Esri software exported to the GDB. What it does is that it took all the different layers that were here, the vector layers anywhere, and if we click open the map, you can see that's what it looks like. One nice thing about Esri file GDB format is that it does allow Manifold to write a couple accessory tables into the file GDB, which can store Manifold styling information. That's going to help. That's not going to help with Esri style, because Esri style information is different than Manifold style. But at least you can recover your style information from using Manifold from file GDBs that Manifold has created and has written. Notice that it doesn't have the Google Maps satellite layer, because Esri doesn't understand such data sources as being part of a GDB, so you can't write those to GDB. Esri's file API also does not allow you to write rasters. So if we had that big ground surface layer that we were working with in the other tutorials here, you couldn't write that into the GDB either, which is probably a good thing, because GDB is unbelievably slow with rasters. Anyway, we have the canals here, and we have the OSM structures, and if you want, we can double click over the OSM structures, and you can see there they are in their full latitude and longitude glory. That's actually not a bad deal. So as you can see, we can easily export Manifold maps to Esri file GDB format. Now, the entire Manifold project is a pretty rich format. Let's. I'm going to move this session out of the way here. So there aren't that many formats where you can save an entire Manifold project format to. But if you like, what we can do is we can choose File, Export Project, and that's the entire project, and we can save the whole thing to an MXB file. There's a couple of different formats that Manifold has. These are all in-house formats. MML files are basically for development use. I don't recommend you use those. There's really only two formats that Manifold people use. The map file, which is what we use for projects. That's unbelievably fast. And there's also MXB files, which feature a high compression. So let's click Export to the MXB file. And Manifold will think, and it'll go ahead and it'll generate the export files. What is export format? What is MXB format? It is a highly compressed format, archival format. Let's move up one level. And you can see my OSM map Venice was about 300 megabytes. My OSM Venice MXB in the MXB format was only 94 megabytes. So it's about 1/3 the size. And if we like, in this other session here, what I can do is I can file, new project, save changes, no. And let's open up this MXB file. Now let's rename this MXB file first. Let's call this my archival OSM Venice file. And now I'm going to drag and drop that into this new project. And you can see that it's there. What it did is what Manifold did is that it took the MXB file and it decompressed it, and it created a new .map project, which is called My Archival Venice Map. So you can see that it completely decompressed this, and the result is something that is exactly reconstructs the project that we saved. And that's how people tend to use MXB files. MXB files are used for archival storage, and because they're smaller, if you want to take a big project and send it to somebody over internet or through a network, send it as an MXB, because it'll take 1/3 as many bytes. Click File, New. Save changes, no. But for actual routine storage, most people, Manifold people, will just use map files. I mean, yeah, okay, they're bigger, but hey, a 6 terabyte drive these days is cheap. So go for the speed. Your time is what's valuable. It's not the size of virtually free bytes that are on disk drive. We've learned how to export the OSM structures layer to a variety of formats. We exported the map to GDB. We exported the entire project to an archival Manifold format called MXB. And now let's learn a different way to send data to an important destination. We're going to load up a database, and we're going to load up an actual live PostgreSQL database that's running on a server. in some distant place across the web. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a connection to that server, and then we're going to use that connection. To create the connection, I can right click here and choose File, Create New Data Source, or I can do it from up here, File, Create New Data Source, and click More. First thing I'll do is I'll give it a name, PostgreSQL. And I've been working with creating Postgres databases a lot recently, so it remembers the last thing I've used. We have all these different things we can work with, like Oracle or MySQL or all these other things. We'll choose PostgreSQL, and we'll build a connection string by using the dialog to help us. And the server name is going to be 192.168.2.15. That's non-routable, so it's a fake IP address. I'll correct it later. Choose login and password. Click login. That'll make it admin. It's also a fake login. Password is going to be 12345, my ultra high security password that I learned to use at NSA. And the database is going to be GISDB. And when I click OK, you see that it builds a connection string. Now when I click Create Data Source, it'll create a data source for that PostgreSQL server at that IP address using these credentials. Now, those are fake credentials because the people that are letting me use their server don't want me to publish all that data on the web. So what I'll do is I'm going to move this dialog off screen, and then I'm going to click this button again, put in the correct credentials, click OK, then I'll click Create Data Source. So let's do it that way, and let's put in the correct IP address, and I think that's about right, and the login if I recall. And the password I have to enter, and the database name, and all that other good stuff. So I'll click OK, and now I'm going to click Create Data Source, and there, that creates the PostgreSQL server here. And there, the Postgres data server is up and live and running, and we're now looking at it. And you can see it has it's populated with some things that we've been working with. Super. We've just created that database connection, and next we're going to load it with some data. Loading the Postgres server with data from our project is extremely easy. For example, if you want to load it with the OSM structures drawing, we highlight the OSM structures drawing and table by control-clicking the two of them. And then what we can do is we can just copy these and paste them into the Manifold Stuff folder. Paste. And there we go. Off and running. Loads it up, and it's done. You can see this is the public OSM structures. If you like, we can double-click that open, and we're looking at a drawing which now exists on the Postgres server, which is somewhere out there across the network, and there we see it. And as I said before, the full latitude and longitude glory that it has. It's all correctly done. Manifold takes a moment to save the actual style information for stuff that it loads into Postgres, so that if you want to use a Postgres server or any of the other big servers as as a centralized data warehouse for Manifold data that can be shared by various players, various other sessions, that's a fine way to do that. In fact, if you like, I'm going to turn this off. What we can do here is let's turn off OSM structures here in the map. I can drag and drop this layer from the server into the map, and you can see this layer here that I'm turning off and on is coming from the PostgreSQL server. So that's really cool. That's way cool. In fact, that's a great way of using databases as a centralized servers. And Postgres is a spectacular database. Well, they all are. I tend to use a PostgreSQL or MySQL because they have kind of unlimited use and they're free, which is convenient. And by the way, we don't just necessarily can take stuff from the map and put it into the Postgres server. We can also take stuff from the Postgres server and we can put it back in the map. For example, we can copy things like these guys here and copy, and then let's paste those into the map. I just copied something out of the Postgres server, and that appears here. And if I double click that open, we can see that's the Mexico drawing and map that's used in a lot of examples in Manifold documentation. And let's delete that because I don't want to clutter up my project here. Delete components, yeah, sure. And let's also delete this OSM structures layer that we brought in from the Postgres server. I'll delete that from the map as well. And turn on the local OSM. And we're not going to be working with Post anymore, so I'll turn that off. All right. So next I think we'll learn how to publish and how to print a map. That'll be a lot of fun. Before we get into creating layouts and printing, there's one more thing I wanted to mention about databases, and that is that Manifold is so fast that the fastest way to load data into a Postgres database, especially something like shapefiles, is to first import the shapefiles into Manifold and then to copy and paste them from Manifold into the PostgreSQL database. In fact, let's turn that database off. I'm going to delete that from the map since we're not going to be using it anymore. That actually turns out to be way faster than using the PostgreSQL built-in shapefile loader. So there you go. All right, we're now going to move on, and what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to print. Say we want to print this display that we've created, and what we'll work with here is I'm going to turn off. I'm going to delete the Google from the map. We're going to work with Bing Street Maps, OSM canals, OSM structures, and the wiki landmarks. And we're going to, basically, print what we see here. We use that to print. And the way you print stuff in Manifold is that you first create a layout, and then you print the layout, which is simple enough. So let's right-click on here and choose Create New Layout. Actually, let's do it from here so you can see the whole process. Right-click, Create New Layout, and we'll leave it called Layout. And I'll use margins for the layout, and it's going to be a format as A4 paper. We're in Europe, so we're going to use A4 paper. And we're going to do that. We can choose portrait or landscape. I'll leave it in landscape. Let's choose Create Layout. Double click Open Layout, and there's the layout. And this little button here turns the margin guides and other guides off and on. That shows the borders of frames. Let's turn that on. And I don't like those big fat margins. Let's make them skinnier margins. We'll choose File, Page Setup, and here let's make margins 10 millimeters. If you're working in the United States, of course, you can use a letter format or whatever other format you want, and of course, U.S. units like inches instead of millimeters. There, and you can see that makes for narrower margins. And to add something to a layout, what you just do is you drag and drop it. For example, take this map and drag and drop it into the layout. And it opens up fully zoomed to the entire contents. To zoom down to Venice itself, I'm going to double-click the frame, and you can see to get this fat border. And when you double-click something, that goes into kind of like navigation mode, and that'll start. And we can pan and zoom using the usual, commands like a left mouse click to pan and zoom, and to right click and drag to zoom in. So let's put Venice about right there. Okay, good. Elements, by the way, in the layout are called frames. And you double click to activate a frame to make it the bold format. And as long as we're in double click mode, we're in navigation mode. If we want to resize or do something else other than navigation, just click outside the frame, and you can see that changes the border. And now you can pick the frame you want to work with, and you pick it just the same way you pick things for editing in Manifold. You just alt-click it in drawings, and we can now kind of alter that by dragging the edit handles, and you can see that, move that around. And if I like, I can double-click that again to put it back into navigation mode, so I can use the wheel mouse to scroll. Do that sort of thing, or right-click and drag to zoom box that way. And that's basically a pick and select workflow. You can pick something by alt-clicking it. You can control-click something to select it. And suppose we don't want canals to be visible like we have here. Well, that's okay. We can go back here to the map, and we can turn off my OSM canals in the map. And now we come back here to the layout. You can see the canals are gone. You might have to refresh the the layout by choosing View Refresh, depending on what you've done. But generally, layouts are pretty responsible, so that if you change whatever's in the content of a frame, in this case, this map is the content of this particular frame in the layout, the layout element will actually update to reflect the changes that you've made. Layouts are a vast topic in Manifold, but they're logically organized, and they use the same commands, in general, orthogonal commands that you use elsewhere in Manifold. So let's learn how to do things like, for example, let's add a text box. And to do that, it's the same as adding points or lines or anything else in a drawing. You go here to the cursor control and you choose Create Text. And that will just click right here to add a text box. And that text box appears as following, and we can change the text here. In the info pane, call it Venice, and click Update Record, and you see that updates the record. We can change the size to, let's make that 32 points. Click Update Record, and now we can click here, and oops, I'm still in text mode, so I don't want to do that, do I? So let's go back here to default. I'll control click on this guy here, choose delete, and that deletes that selected frame. Okay, now let's go back here to alt click this text box, and let's change the size of that. And you know what? I'm going to come back here and I'm going to change the font size to even bigger than 38. Let's make 32 points. Let's make that 36 points. Click Update Record. Great. And I can change a variety of properties here. For example, I can change the background color to, let's change it to brown. Click Update Record. I can change the text to white. And let's make the background black. Click Update Record. Let's change the border color to red and make it 3 points wide. Click Update Record. And so as you can see, you can do all kinds of different things here as you like to adjust the frame. I'll click anywhere outside of that frame to take away the handles, and at any time we can remove the margins that delineate the edge of the frame, so that you can see what it would look like when it's actually printed. Okay, let's add a legend, and we'll add a legend to the to this frame right here. And to do that, what I'll do is I'll choose Create Legend, and the Create Legend dialog lets me give a name for the legend. And let's see, let's call this Building Heights, which is after all what is given in the OSM structures. And what we'll do is we will just create the legend for the OEM structures drawing layer that's in the map, and click Create Legend, and there it automatically created the legend, the Building Heights legend. Next we'll learn how to modify this Building Heights legend. It's useful when working with layouts to keep the Layers pane turned on, because the Layers pane gives you at a glance a look at everything that's in the layer, that's in the layout. For example, here's the map, which is one element that we have here, one frame that we have there. Here's the Venice text frame that we have there, and here's the legends. What a legend is a legend is just a collection of smaller frames that are all grouped together in groups. So, for example, I can select the OSM structures part of the. I can control click here into the Layers pane to select just the OEM structures part of it, or I can control click here to select the entire legend, the entire Building Heights legend. And when the entire legend is selected like that, I can alt-click any of the frames that are part of the legend, and then I can drag them. When I drag and drop that frame, the entire legend drags and drops with me. Let's zoom in to get a closer look at what we're doing there. And let's start modifying that. There's all kinds of things that we can do to modify it. In the Layers pane, I can turn everything on and off all at once. And I'm going to Shift Control A to turn everything off. That's deselect everything. That's just a convenient shortcut. Let's see. What we can do is we can, and by the way, you can also see what makes up the legend here by turning these margin guides on and off. You can see these are a bunch of smaller frames here that make up the various rows in the legend. And the rest, some of the bigger legend frames have this box structure to them, and some do not. So let's get rid of some of these. I'm going to control. Let's see, from here, let's control click the height, and we'll choose that. So I'll delete that particular frame. I don't want OSM structures, so I'm going to control click that, and I choose there to get rid of that as well. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's turn off the base frame, which is this overall black box. That's the border for everything, and that's it right here. So I've turned that off. Let's see, I can in the layout frame I can control click and drag to select everything that overlaps that selection box, I can alt click to pick the title frame. There, I'll click that like that, and now what I can do is I can align all these boxes here to come up tight next to that using the align button. The way the align commands work is that whatever frame is picked, that's the one that controls everything else. So when I click stack vertical, that means all these others are going to move up to be next to that, flush up next to that, which is an extremely convenient way of doing it. So let's now edit, select none. Let's deselect everything, we can tinker endlessly with this stuff. For example, I'll pick one of these frames here, like let's say this one right here. I'll click to pick that frame, and if I want, I can change some of the things here, like the padding, which if padding is 0, which fills in what's between the frame and the contents. Let's make the padding of say 2. Click Update Record, and you can see that with a padding of 2, it forces that symbology to be a little bit smaller. And what I can do, if I like, is here in the Layers pane, I can control-click OSM Structures, which automatically selects all these frames. And now what I can do is in the Alignment tool button here, I can choose same format, and that'll make all these selected ones the same format as the picked one. So there, what I've just done is I forced all the frames to use the same format that I commanded for here, which uses a buffer of 2. I mean, all this is going to seem confusing to you when you're into it and new, because frames and layouts and the commands have just a vast array of features. You have to get your head around them once you learn how to use them. They're extremely easy to use. They're very logical, and they work very quickly. Let's edit select none. There, and that looks pretty darn cool. So what I can do is I can turn this off so you can see what the legend will look like. Let's turn the base layer back on. That's the outside frame, and you can see that the outside frame here is a little bit larger because we deleted two of the frames that were used. So let's fix that. What I will do is I will alt-click that outside frame like that. I can alt-click it here in the Layers pane to make it easier to pick. Okay, so let's select the frames that are in here and resize this frame to match. So I'll control-click there to select that. I'll control-click the OSM Structures to select all the frames within there. And now in the alignment, what I can do is I can choose Resize to Selected, and that'll take the alt-picked, the picked outer base layer and resize it to fit the selected ones. There, we've just resized that down. Let's click Edit, select None. Let's unpick that, and now we can turn this off and on so you can see what that legend is going to look like. If I wanted to, I could put border lines here in between these various frame elements, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave them as is. What next we're going to do is we're going to learn to print this. Now that we have a layout, we can print the thing. I admit this is not a particularly interesting layout, but it'll do. And to print it, we just choose File, Print. And you can print it to a printer. I will print it using Microsoft Print to PDF. I'll print it to a PDF, and then you can do what you want with the PDF. And I'll choose Print, and here we'll save this to. Let's print this to Venice PDF. There, and click Save. And Microsoft Print to PDF is part of Windows 10. There are other PDF printers you can use for other Windows editions, including a wide variety of free PDF printers. And you can see that printed out remarkably fast. In fact, I'm kind of wondering if it did something wrong. But let's take a look and see what it created here in Windows File Explorer. And there's Venice PDF, the PDF. It actually went ahead and did that. And let's double-click that, and that'll open it up in Adobe Acrobat. And I will resize Adobe Acrobat to fit here. Okay, Adobe launches off with all this idiotic stuff that it wants to help you with. So this is what the PDF looks like, and we can choose, let's make that 100% and see what that looks like. And you can zoom around that, and you can see that it's not bad at all in terms of the job that it did. It did razor sharp things like legends and text documents and stuff like that. It actually didn't do all that terrible a job with the vector stuff here as well. Different PDF printers will do better or worse with vector layers or graphics layers. They all tend to be terrible with the image server layers because it doesn't really know what the content of those rasters are and how they should be scaled and all that sort of thing. But not bad overall, not bad, and pretty good for a PDF effort. So let's call that a win. I'm going to close that PDF. And there, what we've just done is we've shown you how to bring in how to create a layout, how to use a map to drag and drop that into the layout. We created a text element in the layout. We created a legend. We monkeyed around with editing that legend. Like I say, the numbers of things you can do with layouts, in particular legends and that sort of thing, it's just staggering in terms of the number of features here. To recap everything that we've done in this tutorial to date, we began by adding points to the Wiki Landmarks layer, and we showed how labels automatically popped up when you put those in, because the labels layer takes its data from the name field in the Wiki Landmarks drawing. We showed how to export the OSM structures layer to a G package into shapefiles. We exported the entire map to GDB. We exported the entire project MXB. We created a PostgreSQL DBMS server connection. Then we copied and pasted the OSM structures to the server. And then we showed how you could use a layer from the server. And we showed how you could even take stuff from the server, copy it, and paste it into the drawing where we created that Mexico drawing. We created a layout. We populated it using what Manifold calls pick and select workflow, where we dragged and dropped the map to create a frame. We resized that frame. We added a text layer. We created a legend. And then we showed you how to print. Everything that you've seen in this video is covered in way more detail in the user manual, in hundreds of lavishly illustrated topics, including hundreds of lavishly illustrated, absolutely step-by-step examples. You can't cover everything in a video that you can cover in user manual. And a Manifold Release 9 and Viewer, I mean, they're just very large systems that have just an immense amount of capability. You're really getting, a lot for your money. So take advantage of the user manual, drill into that user manual on specific topics. There are very many other videos. I think there's almost 200 videos now, which are not all long videos like this. There's only very few long videos. Most of them are rather short videos that cover specific topics. So stay in touch with Manifold and especially keep up with what's new. Manifold evolves very rapidly. In fact, it evolves faster than videos can be updated. So check out the very latest videos that tend to be short videos to understand how to learn new features. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Tell your friends about Manifold, and I hope you enjoy using it. It's a super powerful product, and it's been created just for you. So thanks for watching, and goodbye from Manifold Land. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.